In this video, I'm gonna show you how to make a modern-looking Tkinter option menu for your Python GUI applications with also a custom icon. By the way, before you get started, if you're here, I'm sure you want to become a programmer, and yes, here on YouTube you can learn a lot, but one of the best ways to actually improve, especially if you want to turn this into a career, is to take some courses made by experts in the field. Usually these courses are structured in a way that makes it easier for you to learn properly, and I've selected for you some of the best courses and learning platforms. You'll find the links in the description down below, and by using those links, you're gonna help this channel as well. So first of all, we're gonna import Tkinter as TK. Tkinter as TK, and then we're gonna import from pil import image TK and also image like that. If you get an error because you don't have pil installed, you need to install it like this. So pip install pillow, or you might have to do something like pip3 install pillow, and this will install this, and you'll be able to use those. Okay, then I'm gonna create a root window, so like that. I'm going to make it 400 by 300 pixels. So root geometry 400, 300 like that. Then I'm going to make it not resizable, and then I'm going to do something like width like that, and false, and also height false like that. And then I'm going to create a main frame that will be the widget that will hold all the things. So TK frame, and I'm going to have root as the parent, and then the background white like that. Then I'm gonna use pack to show it on the screen, so fill TK both like that, and then expand true like that. Then I'm gonna configure just the column, so 0 weight 1 to make it stretchable, and then row configure 0 first row weight 1. Okay, and now I'm gonna set a few variables with the colors so that you can change them whenever you want, and then the widgets will use them instead of hard coding the values basically. So color bg1, and I'm gonna use this color here, so 6330ff. Then color fg1, I'm going to use simply white. Then color bg2, I'm going to use something like cbbaff, and then color fg2, I'm going to use black like that. Okay, so now I'm going to create a variable. I'm just going to call it variable, but you can call it whatever, and I'm going to use string var. And then also I'm going to set the value of this variable to choose option like that. And now we can create our option menu. So select option, tk.option menu, and then I want it to be a child of the mainframe. Then I'm going to use this variable for the value, and then here you can do something like first. These are the options. Third, like that. And here you could also have like a list with all the values. Okay, so you could have something like, let's delete this, list options like that. And then here, first, second, third, like that. And use that here with the asterisk like that. So list options, and this would get all the options from this list and use them as options in the option menu. Then I already have the carrot down icon. I've actually downloaded it from Font Awesome. I've downloaded the SVG and then I converted it to PNG, and I scaled it down to 24 by 15 pixels. You could use pil to actually change the size, do whatever you want, but I've actually decided to have them ready with the right size, etc., and also the right color. As you can see here, I've got carrot down white and carrot down black. Perfect. So let's create two photo image objects that we can actually use. So carrot down image black, and then we're going to use image tk photo image like that, and then image, open like that, and then carrot down black.png, and also here white, and here white. Perfect. And now we can use the image and compound like this, but stick until the end because I'm going to show you also a different way to do this that looks so much nicer. So stick until the end. By the way, if you're liking the video and you want to help me keep creating content like this, you can support me and also get exclusive perks on Patreon, link in the description if you want to check that out, and thank you so much for the support. So now we can do something like select option, config. You need to do this because you cannot pass all the options here. You need to do this afterwards. So background color, I'm going to use color background 1. FG foreground color, I'm going to use foreground color 1. Then active background, which is basically when you hover over the menu, I'm going to use color BG2, and then active foreground, of course, and I'm going to use this. Then the font, just going to use Arial, but you can use whatever. Then I don't want the border, so border 0. Highlight thickness 1. Then highlight background, I'm going to use color BG2, and this is basically sort of the external border, and I use this to have the drop down menu slightly separated from the actual button, and you'll see what I mean in a second. And then I'm going to use padding, pad Y, and I'm going to use 20. Then I'm going to use indicator on, and I'm going to use 0 because I don't want the default indicator. So now we can actually place it on the frame. So column 0, row 0, and then sticky. I'm going to use tk.n to actually stick it at the top, and then plus tkew to stretch it horizontally. Then pad x 40, and then pad y, just do something like 30, 0, like that. Then of course we need to call root.mainLoop because we want to actually run the application, otherwise without the main loop running you don't get anything on the screen. So let's save it and run it like that. As you can see, you get this. Okay, as you can see, when you hover over it you get different colors, which is kind of cool, and you don't have the default indicator. Let's actually comment this out so you can actually see what the default indicator is like. You can see this is the default indicator, which is not that great. I want the actual carrot down here. Okay, so let's close it and let's actually do this. Now, as I said, you can add the image here. So we can add carrot down, let's say white, and then compound, and we can do something like tk right, like that, and let's see what we get. As you can see, we get this carrot down. As you can see, this works, but the carrot down moves around according to the width of the text, which means that if the text is long, you get it here, but if you have a shorter text, as you can see, this moves around. Now this is here, and then here, as you can see, it moves according to the length of the text, which is not that cool. Okay, I'd love to have this stay here, basically. By the way, just a side note, if you're using an image inside a function or a class, here we are in the global space, let's say, but if you're using this inside a function, as I said, or a method, then it might happen that you don't see it, you don't see the carrot down, the image, and I've actually made a video on why and how to fix that, so I'll leave the link in the description and in the cards up above if you want to check that out after this one. And if you're experiencing the problem right now, well, watch it now so you can fix it and carry on with this video. So let's first style the options. As you can see, I want to style these because they don't actually look great. And then we can see how we can place the carrot where we want, like here. So let's close this and keep going. So to access the options, to style the options, we need to use the menu that is part of the option menu. So how can we do this? We can do this by doing something like select option, menu, simply like that, and then config like this. As you can see, you don't have the auto completion, so I'm just going to remove this for a second. So we actually have the auto completion and I can actually do this more quickly. So let's remove this. As you can see now, you've got your auto completion. So color BG1, foreground, I'm gonna do color foreground 1. Then the active background when you hover over them. So color BG2 and also active foreground, color FG2. The font is the same. As I said, you can use the font you want. So Arial 16 pixels, then border 0, perfect. And now we can actually add the menu here. Remember this step if you actually removed it. Otherwise, this is not going to style anything and you won't see the actual styling. Let's run it and see what we get. So as you can see, this looks incredible. I actually like this. As you can see here, between the choose option, this thing here, and the menu here around the area, you get a sort of little line. This is because I've added this thing here. So highlight, thickness, etc. If you were to actually set this to 0 and this to nothing, okay, you would get everything. As you can see, the line is not here anymore between the two things, and it doesn't look great to me. You can do whatever you want. You can remove that and not have the line in the middle here, but I actually like this with the line. So if we go back to this, you can see that you have that line and that looks like a sort of separator and it looks nicer to me. By the way, I haven't mentioned that the highlight goes all the way around the select box. Here it's not visible because we're using a white frame, a white background, but if you had a darker background, you would see a border around and maybe you don't like that. Let's actually see what I mean. So now you've got highlight thickness 1. If you run it, you can see around here you have a little sort of border. And this is not visible because you have a white background. But if you were to change the background, let's actually change it here. So mainframe config, you can do like background black. So it overrides the white above. And if you run that, as you can see, you have this little border, okay, which you might not like. So keep that in mind. So if you were to actually set this to 0, that will go away. As you can see, you don't have the light border around, okay? So keep that in mind. And as you can see, you don't have that little line here that I mentioned. So actually, we can do that, okay? And around here, you can see this, there is a little border when you hover over the options, and you can actually remove that. So you can do something like active border 0, and as you can see, you don't have the border around that anymore. And to actually show you the border, this is the border I'm talking about, okay? So you can have it 0. I'm actually going to delete this and use the default value, but you know that you can remove that, you can add that, etc. using active border equals, etc., whatever you want. Another important thing here, I am on Linux, so things are as you see on the screen, but for example on Windows things can be slightly different. For example, I've noticed that around here, around the whole menu, you have a border. I'm actually going to show you a screenshot here next to this one so you can see the difference. Okay, so this is Linux and here you have Windows, okay? And also, as you can see, I'm using 16 pixels for the font, and on Windows it looks smaller for some reason. To have the same size, you need to use 19 or 20 pixels on Windows. So keep that in mind. If you are using a different operating system, you may see a slightly different result, and maybe you need to change things slightly, maybe the padding or whatever. And sometimes you cannot do the exact same thing on Linux and Windows or Mac, for example, because they have default values that you cannot change, for example. Of course, you can change the color here. Okay, I'm actually going to leave 1 in this case, but you can change the color. I've actually used this color because I think that it looks nice, but you can actually use another color, etc., etc. Okay. So let's actually see how you can add the caret in the proper position. So first of all, I'm going to remove this and this like that. So we don't want to use the image and compound settings there. And we're going to create a new label. So we're going to create a label called caret down label, TK label, like that. And then I'm gonna make it a child of the select option, so the option menu, then width 25, which is basically the width of my image. Then I'm gonna make it a square. Then border, I'm gonna set it to 0. Highlight thickness 0 in this case, and then the image, caret down image white. And now we're going to place it where we want it to be, and we're going to use place. So caret down label, place, and then relative x 0.87, and then that 0.35, which means 87% from the left and 35% from the top. And we can actually run that. As you can see, this is there. So you've got 87%, and then you got 35%. This is how place works. But as you can see, you already have a problem. The label background, you've got this default background, and we can just set it to the same color as the option menu. Okay, so we can actually do this. We can do something like here, BG, and we can do something like color BG1, which is fine. But when you hover over that, as you can see, the background doesn't change. So we need to fix that first, and then we need to also fix the other things. For example, when you click on the icon, when you click here, as you can see, the menu doesn't show up. Okay, but before we get to that, please, if you're enjoying the video, give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I really appreciate it. So the first thing we need to do is create 2 events. So let's actually create 2 events. So on enter, event, this is necessary because automatically Python actually passes an event object to the function that you bind to whatever event. So you need to have it there, even if you don't actually use that. Then caret down label, config. So when we enter, we want the background to be the color background 2. And when we leave, when we exit, when the pointer actually exits the option menu, we want this to be background 1 to go back to normal. And then we need to bind those events so that when we enter the option menu, we call those events and you get the right color for the label. So select option, bind, when we enter, so we're going to use this thing here, and then on enter, and then leave, on, leave, of course. And now let's see what we get. So as you can see, when you enter, the background of the label changes accordingly, and that is working just fine. The only problem is that now you want this to be black when the pointer enters the menu. And you can just do this by changing the image when you enter. So you already have those events here, so you can just do something like image and then caret down image black when you enter, and then you get back to normal. So white, like that, and now that should work. As you can see, now this is working as expected, and this is so good, so good. Most of the times though, you don't want to change the color here like that, but you want this to stay like that, for example, and just have those to highlight the thing that you are trying to select. And let's actually delete this. Let's actually comment those out like that. And also here, I'm just going to do background 1 and foreground 1, so it doesn't change when you hover over it. So as you can see, it doesn't change, and you've got this, which is kind of nicer to me. Perfect. So now we need to fix the problem that when we click on here, the menu doesn't show up. And of course, this is because when you're clicking here, you're clicking on the label and you're not clicking on the option menu. So we need to sort of fake a click on the option menu. Okay, so we can do this by generating an event. So let's go down here, on, label, click, then the event, then select option, event generate, and we're gonna generate the button 1 event, which is like clicking on the left button of the mouse, like that. And then of course we need to bind this to the carried down label. So bind, so when we click the button 1, we also generate the on label click. We actually call this on label click, and we generate a sort of click programmatically on the select option. So let's actually run this and see if that works. So now here that works as expected, but when we click on the label, as you can see, that works as well. Really nice. And if you want to learn more about Tkinter and Python, watch the video you see on the screen, and don't forget to check out my Patreon, and also like the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you soon. Bye.